Welcome back to Old Coin Adventures. Before you spend another 1984 Lincoln penny, take a closer look at Lincoln's ear. Because one unusual detail on this coin can turn an ordinary-looking penny into a highly collectible double-die variety. And here's what makes this one so interesting. You're not looking for a random scratch or damage. You're looking for a specific doubling that can appear on Lincoln's ear, beard, and bow tie. If those details match the genuine 1984 double-die obverse F's 101, you may have something collectors actively look for. But how valuable could it actually be? In today's video, we'll show you exactly what makes this penny valuable, how to compare it with a normal 1984 cent, and how to avoid confusing real doubling with common machine doubling. And before we finish, I'll reveal what a certified example actually sold for at auction, explain how much condition can change the price, and show you where you can have your coin authenticated or potentially sell it. So if you have a 1984 Lincoln cent sitting in a jar, drawer, or collection, don't spend it yet. Take a close look at Lincoln's ear, because that tiny extra detail could be the reason your 1-cent coin deserves a second look. Before we go any further, take a look at your 1984 Lincoln cent. Not the date, not the color. Look at Lincoln himself, because there is something unusual hiding on the front of this penny, and most people would never notice it without knowing exactly where to look. The 1984 Lincoln cent is part of the famous Lincoln Memorial Cent series. The original Lincoln portrait was designed by Victor David Brenner, and the memorial reverse was designed by Frank Gasparo. The coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, and because it was made in Philadelphia, there is no mint mark underneath the date. That is important, because if you're searching through your coins, you don't need to find a D, and you don't need to find an S. You're looking for a regular-looking 1984 Lincoln cent. The coin measures about 19 millimeters in diameter and weighs approximately 2.50 grams. Its composition is copper-plated zinc, and it has a plain edge. Now here's something that makes this story even more interesting. More than 8 billion 1984 Lincoln cents were produced. So the date itself is definitely not rare. Millions of people handled these pennies. They spent them, saved them, dropped them into jars, and forgot about them. But among those ordinary-looking cents, there is a recognized major variety, known as the 1984 double-die obverse. And collectors gave it a much more memorable name, the doubled ear. Now, why would anyone call a penny a doubled ear? That's where you need to look closely, because the unusual feature is not some giant crack across the coin. It's not a missing date, and it's not a mint mark error. It's right on Lincoln's ear. And once you know what you're looking for, it's surprisingly easy to understand why collectors became interested in this variety. But there is something else. The ear isn't the only place where the doubling appears. Pctus notes strong southward doubling on Lincoln's ear, his beard, and his bow tie. That gives us several important areas to examine. And now we have a mystery. How did a normal-looking penny end up with an extra-looking ear? Was the coin struck twice? Was somebody trying to alter it? Or did the mistake happen much earlier, inside the die-making process? That's what we're going to uncover next. Because the answer is what separates a damaged penny from a genuine double-die variety. And once you understand that difference, you'll never look at a 1984 Lincoln cent the same way again. Now, let's get to the detail you've been waiting for. The famous 1984 doubled ear. Start with Lincoln's ear. On a genuine 1984 double-die obverse F's 101, the doubling is especially visible toward the lower or south side of the ear. This can create the appearance of an additional earlobe, and that's where the nickname, doubled ear, comes from. But don't stop at the ear. Move your attention down to Lincoln's beard, and then examine the bow tie. These areas can also show the characteristic doubling associated with this variety. And that's important, because you don't want to identify this penny based on one strange-looking mark. You want the entire pattern to make sense. Now here's where many collectors make a mistake. They see something that looks doubled, and immediately think, I found a rare double die. Not necessarily. A coin can show scratches, damage, die deterioration, or machine doubling, and still look unusual under magnification. Machine doubling is especially important to understand. It happens during the striking process and can sometimes make part of the design look wider, flattened, or slightly shifted. But that's not the same as a genuine double die. With a true double die, the unusual characteristics were created in the die itself, before the coin was struck. That's why the characteristics can appear consistently on coins struck from that die. So when you're examining your 1984 cent, don't just ask, does the ear look doubled? Ask a better question. Does the doubling match the known FS101 characteristics? That's the difference between simply finding something unusual and potentially finding a recognized variety. A coin loop or good magnification can help you examine the details. Start with the ear, then check the beard, and finally look at the bow tie. Compare those areas with photographs of authenticated FS101 examples. But remember, magnification can help you see a feature. It cannot prove that the coin is genuine. If your penny appears promising, don't clean it. Don't polish Lincoln's face. Don't scratch the ear. And don't try to make the doubling look stronger. Keep the coin exactly as you found it. Because if you've actually found the real thing, the next step is professional authentication. Services such as PCGS or NGC can examine and attribute recognized varieties. And once the variety is confirmed, we can finally ask the question every collector wants answered. How much is this little penny actually worth? That's where the story gets much more interesting. Now, let's talk about the part everyone has been waiting for. The value. First, there's something you need to understand. A normal 1984 Lincoln cent is common. And even if your coin appears to have a doubled ear, that doesn't automatically mean it's worth thousands of dollars. The exact variety matters. The condition matters. The color matters. And most importantly, the doubling has to be genuine. The recognized variety we're discussing is the 1984 Lincoln cent double die obverse FS101. And when you find a genuine example in exceptional condition, the numbers can become very interesting. PCGS currently records an auction result of $100,000. That example was graded MS68RD by PCGS and sold through Heritage Auctions on March 28, 2026. Now, don't make the mistake of thinking, my 1984 penny is worth $100,000. That auction result belongs to one specific coin, with one specific grade, and one specific level of preservation. And that's why auction records can vary dramatically. For example, a PCGS MS67 red example of the same FS101 variety sold for about $130,000. Another certified example in a lower grade sold for even less. So what does that tell us? It tells us that finding the variety is only the beginning. The condition of the coin can make a huge difference. A coin with strong original details, clean surfaces, and excellent color can be much more desirable than a worn or damaged example. And that's why professional grading can become important. If your coin appears to match FS101, the safest approach is to protect it first, then consider professional authentication and attribution. PCGS and NGC are two well-known services collectors use for authentication and grading. Once you know exactly what you have, you can compare your coin with actual auction results for coins in the same variety and similar grade. And if you decide to sell, you don't necessarily have to sell it to the first person who offers you money. You can consider established auction companies, such as Heritage Auctions, Great Collections, or Stax Bowers. These platforms regularly handle certified U.S. coins, and their auction records can help you understand what collectors have actually paid. But remember, don't rush. First, identify the variety. Confirm the authenticity. Determine the grade. And only after that, think about selling. Because the biggest mistake would be seeing a photograph online, assuming you have the same coin, and selling it without knowing exactly what you're holding. The 1984 doubled ear teaches us an important lesson about coin collecting. The date itself can be common, while a specific variety from that date can be much harder to find. Billions of 1984 Lincoln cents were made, but collectors aren't searching for every 1984 penny. They're searching for the right characteristics, the right doubling, the right variety, and the right condition. So, if you have a 1984 Lincoln cent sitting somewhere in your collection, take another look. Check the ear, check the beard, check the bow tie, and don't confuse ordinary machine doubling with a genuine double die. Because you might be holding an ordinary 1-cent coin, or you might have found the famous 1984 doubled ear. And sometimes, the difference between an everyday penny and a serious collector coin isn't something you can see from across the room. It's a tiny detail, hidden on the face of Abraham Lincoln. This is Old Coin Adventures. If you enjoyed today's investigation, subscribe, because next time, we'll take another ordinary-looking American coin and uncover the tiny detail that makes collectors stop, look twice, and ask one important question. Could this be the one?